JAX and ZOOBLE are some of the most popular characters in the Digital Circus universe, not counting Pomni, of course. We also know for sure that the third episode of Digital Circus will be all about ZOOBLE, while the story of JAX is just beginning and we have a lot more to learn about him. I'm 100% sure that the third episode, which will be released very soon, will reveal the real personalities of these two mysterious characters, because their story stretches back to the pilot episode, and in the second episode, the untold war between them was confirmed. The new episode will give us a lot of interesting events that can end very unpredictably for these two, and in this video, we will discuss what fate awaits JAX and ZOOBLE in episode 3, and I'd like to start with JAX. And even though JAX seems to be the most stable, the official concepts tell us that even this character can feel sad and depressed, which was most clearly shown by the final of the second episode in which JAX stood there, distantly watching everyone else strengthen their bond with each other, and instead of trying to get closer to each other, he became more and more distant from them, and no one feels close to him. In the pilot episode, though, we never once saw JAX alone. He was with someone all the time, and even though I don't think he was very welcome, he was still with them. And now we often see him left out, and JAX realizes that the longer this goes on, the worse the consequences will be. And that makes him both angry and sad at the same time. A long time ago on my channel, I said that JAX only wants to seem cool, but in reality, he is an insecure guy who wants support like the others. But because of his original role, he doesn't get it. And this is clearly shown in the scene where JAX very carefully tries to hint to Kinger and Gangle that Kaufmo will not return to them. And apparently these events aggravated the state of JAX that led to those actions, or more correctly to say crimes that we saw in the second episode. And also important is his so-called bipolar disorder, which was expressed in a sharp change of his mood in episode 2. But before that, I want to tell you about the recent leaks where we were shown the rooms of all the characters, and JAX's room is not one of them, just a door. And if you remember Kaufmo's room, which was more like a mental patient's room, what if JAX's room is going through similar changes, and that's why the creators didn't want to show it to us? Now let's get back to JAX, and I'll tell you all about it in detail and in order. And I was correct in calling all of his actions crimes. And the first thing JAX did when he saw that they were given the truck was to run and take the driver's seat, thus confirming his status as an egoist who doesn't care about the desires of others. And then, after the disappointment, he forcibly put Gangle in the truck, even though it was obvious that she didn't want it. Then the most significant act was the mocking of Pomni when JAX, because of his crazy ideas, decided that throwing Pomni on a neighboring truck would be a good idea. In the end, it almost got Pomni killed, for which she was rude to the bully. Well, without rude blackmail also did not do without, and the victim was already familiar to us in this role, Gangle. And the object of blackmail was some figurine, and apparently still in the Digital Circus, JAX helped Gangle to hide something, and in the end, she fell into eternal captivity to him. But that's just the beginning, and his most brutal crimes begin a little later. The meeting with Fudge Monster became the key event in revealing JAX's identity, and we have already said a little about it, but everyone remembers the fragment where JAX and Fudge Monster made a deal, in which Fudge was to help catch alligators and take them out of the abyss, and in exchange for this, JAX would give the key to the city that Fudge needed for revenge for past offenses. And at the time of the deal, JAX was very excited and happy, and I think it was not because they would finally be able to get out of the abyss and find the robbers, but because of what would happen next. As we know, the help in catching the alligators was not needed, so JAX could have defaulted on his commitments. But for our rabbit, it would not be interesting, and here we are approaching the main crime of JAX, because of which he can be punished. And the degree of punishment depends on Kane's wishes. JAX has committed mass murder at Candy Canyon Kingdom, and you can argue that he did nothing with his own hands, but look at the excitement and happiness he felt when he realized that he left the gates to the city open for a reason, and realized that this terrible voice is his old friend Fudge, who will destroy the entire kingdom in the next hour. And here there is a dilemma, because no one knows the fate of the kingdom after the end of the test, and it is likely that it just disappeared and no one was hurt. But none of us, including JAX, know this for sure, which means that the rabbit already had a plan to wreak havoc in the kingdom and was well aware of the consequences for all its inhabitants after his so-called jokes. I'm sure that if JAX knew that the location would disappear after the adventure was over, he would have just closed the door, but he was sure that there would be ruins left behind. And this says about JAX only that he is a sadist and a killer who for the sake of his pleasure is ready to sacrifice absolutely anyone, and he does not care who it will be, an ordinary NPC or a living person. And his attitude towards everyone is expressed in his behavior, and in contrast to him, we can say about Pomni, who also has a huge influence on the second episode. When Pomni and Gummy Goo, who is also not a living character but an ordinary game NPC, get into the back room, Pomni, instead of mocking the fact that the alligator found out that everything he remembered and knew simply doesn't exist, on the contrary, tries to somehow support him, calm him down, befriend him, and it seemed to me that she even took a friendly liking to him. Or the same Regatha, when she found out about the monstrous events in the kingdom because of Fudge, she could not find words to describe it while Jax was happy with such news. But the most important thing was hidden at the end of the second episode, but we'll discuss it after a little nostalgia for the pilot episode. Right away we remember how Jax mocked Pomni at the time when she first got into the circus, and while everyone else was somehow trying to convince her that it wasn't that bad, Jax was directly telling her that she was close to going crazy, or how he dumped the girls when he was scared of Kaufmo and then talked to Kinger and Gangle in a mocking manner. I'm not even talking about his attitude towards Gangle, because you already know that she is his main target, not only in the pilot, but also in the second episode, and we see Jax getting more and more alienated from the others, and everyone mentally feels it, especially Pomni, who experienced a hallucination and saw the support from everyone in the circus, from Ragatha, Gangle, Kinger, and even the very harsh Zooble. But Jax is again not present here, and here we realize that Jax is a recluse and a maniac who could quite possibly become a major threat to everyone else. Well before now, it's time to recognize that Jax could very realistically become the main antagonist in the digital circus. He's a terrible friend, an unreliable comrade, a bully, a joker in the worst sense of the word, and a real sadist who apparently doesn't need anyone's support, and because of that he allows himself much more than everyone else. Or on the contrary, Jax is too much in need of attention and tries to attract the attention of others with all his actions. But in any case, both options lead to the inevitable, the complete negation of the rabbit by all the other characters, and as a result, a possible abstraction. And after we have understood all the aspects of such a character as Jax, and based on the facts of the first part of the video, I can safely say that Jax will definitely disappear from the series, and it's only a matter of time. Gooseworx said that the third episode will be much better, and it is her favorite episode. And here we remember how Goose said that Zooble is her favorite character, so the fact that in the pilot and the second episode we didn't learn much about Zooble was done on purpose, because the most valuable information about this character will be stored in episode 3. Gooseworx also told us about this, and added that we should expect much more about this character in the next episodes. And this is good, because Zooble is the weirdest character of all, and if we understand that Kinger is a strange man who suffers from paranoia, Gangle is a whiny girl who can't stand up for herself, Ragatha is an insecure but at the same time very kind girl, Jax is a bully who enjoys any kind of violence in the circus, and Pomni is the only one who has compassion for absolutely all participants of the adventure. But who is Zooble is still a mystery, and even those characteristics from the beginning of the video give us almost no information about the real Zooble. Although many people know that Zooble is a reference on the Zolo constructor, but still they do not fully understand the complexity of this idea. Zooble, as well as a strange constructor, consists of parts that are not connected to each other, and because of this, she still does not fully understand who she is and who she wants to be. At the moment, the inner conflict, which is expressed in the constant search for the perfect image, does not allow Zooble to identify herself in any way. And also in the musical adventure, we were shown Zooble's room, which finally revealed what her chest of details looks like, but the greatest value is the room itself, and if you look closely, we see a huge amount of colors and details that seem to fit together, but at the same time, absolutely do not fit together, which is clearly seen in comparison with the rooms of other characters. Let's talk about what might actually happen to Zooble in the new episode and in the following episodes, and where it all leads Zooble. What if Zooble is on the verge of death in the new episode, and maybe she'll give up on adventure again, and what the consequences could be? This, and much more, we will discuss further in this video. Keep in mind that the third episode will not be for children at all, which means that we will see something horrible, disgusting, or scary very soon, and judging by the fact that episode 3 will be about Zooble, she will be the main character of this horror. First of all, we need to understand where the new episode will take place, and most likely, it will be a mystical house with Martha Mildenhall, seal, and tape recorder. And I already had a video on my channel dedicated to the events that may happen inside this house. Zooble will probably refuse to participate in the adventure as before, which will make Kane angry, and he will decide to force Zooble to participate in the new adventure. And considering the fact that Zooble always limps on one leg, and the adventures outside the digital circus tent are opened thanks to the portal, Kane can just pick the moment when these phenomena coincide, and thus Zooble will get into a new location because of his deficiency. And this will be the first scene of the beginning of the reveal of Zooble's identity. And the whole episode will be about finding the real Zooble and identifying herself as a person and what that will lead to. And based on that, we're going to divide the video into 2 chapters: character and implications. We are all used to seeing Zooble as a neutral character who is known for his rudeness, and the most pronounced confirmation of this was the fragment where Zooble directly told Kinger that she was sure that he was the one who should have turned into an abstracted monster next instead of Kaufmo. And that's assuming Kinger was the one who saved her. And no one even thinks about the fact that Zooble might actually be a very vulnerable girl who desperately hides it and is afraid to show everyone her weakness. And all her arrogance and actions are just a lame way of hiding it. For all her faults, she continues to maintain good relations with the others. And even Pomni, who is currently the most uncomfortable in the digital circus, feels her support. And episode 3 may gradually reveal this line. We will understand more and more of Zooble's true meaning with each passing minute. We can draw a parallel with Gummy Goo, who was initially presented to us as a villain, but the longer we watched the second episode, the more sympathy we felt for this character. And I have a hunch that Gooseworx left us a little clue in the last episode. Let's remember again how desperate he was to get Zooble to take part in the new adventure, and lured her in every possible way. And as I said before, Gummy Goo was probably meant for Zooble. And by drawing a parallel between these characters, we realize that they are very similar. They both don't fully understand who they are, and that's why the third episode should make us fall in love with Zooble. Gooseworx has already told us that her favorite Zooble image will be in episode 4, and also from episode 3 to 9, we will see a lot more scenes with Zooble, and therefore we will not see a full-fledged transformation into an abstracted monster for this character. But we should not forget that Gooseworx said that such process as abstraction will also be dedicated to the episode, and we will learn how this process takes place. And based on what we've learned so far, there's a good chance that Zooble could be the one to undergo this phenomenon, and a good chance that it will happen in the third episode amidst everything that's going on with her. Or alternatively, Zooble will have the courage to become one of the leaders of the digital circus and will be able to lead everyone else. And considering the fact how bravely she responds to Kane under the current circumstances and is not afraid to be rude to JAX, I have confidence that it is Zooble who will be Pomni's main helper in finding the coveted exit of the digital circus. But given the last two facts, we can assume that the exact same situation with Zooble as with JAX can happen again. Initially, they were very similar. Both of them are a bit rude, straightforward, and if the final character of JAX was revealed to us in episode 2, and he turned out to be just disgusting, because we found out that from a funny bully, JAX turned into a real maniac who is interested only in death and violence, and with his actions, he clearly proved it to us. And if my theory is correct, then Zooble is also hiding a real villain. And I have one very interesting theory in favor of that. Everyone knows the legendary painting, The Last Supper, which depicts Jesus Christ surrounded by people, and he fulfills the role of a Messiah. In the final scene of the pilot episode, Pomni appears as Jesus Christ, and one old leak confirms it. Among all those depicted, we see Judas Iscariot, who, according to the story, betrayed Jesus. And we see that he sits on the left side of the table with one hand on the table. And in the pilot episode, we see a clear reference, and Judas appears as Zooble. So we can think that in the third episode, we can see Zooble getting closer to the others in order to get into the circle of trust. And in the second episode, we see that at least with Pomni, it is already working. And then gradually, we will see more and more of Zooble's true character and true goals in the digital circus. What if Zooble is an NPC created by Kane for the purpose of spying on everyone else? This theory has merit, as the constant abandonment of adventures really makes you wonder. Perhaps Zooble realizes that there is a possibility that something could go wrong with her in the world of the other NPCs, and it would completely declassify her. But this theory is on the verge of insanity. And which scenario do you believe in the most? If you have your own theories, I will be madly happy to read each of them in the comments below the video.